Today's live is the most important live stream we have done here on the Family Rules as it covers domestic violence. In this live, we will cover a variety of topics when it comes to domestic violence, but please note we are not licensed therapists, doctors, or any type of professional. Nevertheless, we are humans and want to do our part in helping those that may need help. And that is the purpose of this live. So for our family rulers who are used to seeing us live, it will still be the same type of vibe where it will be an open discussion. There may be some laughs, there may be some sad parts, there may be a bunch of stuff. But we are going to keep the focus on domestic violence. And again, the whole purpose of this is to help those who may be struggling with it, who may be suffering from it, and who may need to do something about it. So first, my name is TJ Jackson, and that is my wife. That is my wife. This is my wife. When do you say that versus this? I know. This is my wife. Why did I say that?
I don't know.
This is my wife, Frances Jackson, and we are part of the Family Rules.
We are part of it, yes.
The first thing we need to square off, Frances, is the definition of domestic violence. What is domestic violence? Domestic violence, this is the technical term. Domestic violence is a pattern of coercive, controlling behavior that can include physical abuse, emotional or psychological abuse, sexual abuse, or financial abuse, which is using money and financial tools to exert control. Some abusers are able to exert complete control over a victim's every action without ever using violence or only using subtle threats of violence. All types of abuse are devastating to victims. Now, Frances, we did a poll.
Mm-hmm.
We need to scoot this over. We did a poll on our Instagram, on our stories, and asked people if psychological and emotional abuse could be considered domestic violence.
Right.
I have to say, I was a bit shocked by the response. I didn't expect so many people to consider it. Let's get it up. Hold on. Here we go. Okay, there we go. I didn't expect 92% of people, and we so people know there's about 250 people who responded. I didn't expect 92% to consider emotional and psychological abuse as domestic violence. I thought it would be maybe like 60-40. I don't, what's your opinions on that?
I think that it's changed over the years. I feel like 20 years ago, those would not have been considered. I think the act of violence is what they were speaking about, but that was years ago. A lot of people have changed their mentality on kindness and violence and stuff like that. A lot of people. And the newer generation too, also, I think contributes to that.
I think another thing is, I think it's important because emotional psychological abuse can be equally as dangerous and equally as terrible. And I think you're right, Frances, because truthfully, if I was asked, did I see emotional or psychological abuse as domestic violence? My answer probably would have been no. I would have thought it had to be physical abuse to be labeled as domestic violence. Mm-hmm. Again, I don't know if that's because I've never experienced domestic violence. I've never really encountered it or seen it in action. So I'm not as in the know of it. The only part I do know about domestic violence is my mother was murdered almost 30 years ago because of domestic violence.
And that's an extreme. That's an extreme situation as well.
So, by the way, I should also mention that for anyone who wants to leave their comments, please do so. We're going to continue to share on the live stream. Again, our purpose is to help anyone out there who may need this help. So if you're new to our channel, don't feel like you must respond or comment. Just sit back and hopefully learn from it and grow from it. Rafi says psychological abuse is even worse to recognize than physical one, and the scar it leaves you is even deeper.
It's very true.
So, Frances, what is your opinion on? Here's another thing. We asked many people, what would you tell your best friend if you feel they are suffering from domestic violence? And we're going to get to those comments, but I wanted to just throw that question out there so that maybe you guys could put it in the comments. And again, on the live chat, and then we're going to share it with those who may want to see it. I just think that level of support is very, very important for people to see. Because sometimes, like everything, when you're going through something, you feel alone, you feel isolated. And I think it's very important for people to know that there is support out there. We will continue to also scroll on the bottom some helpful things for you, or for someone that you know who may be going through it, for them to reach out for support. Clara says, hello, family. I saw the title and I was one of those. I am now good. I'm good now, but those memories still stay with me, and I left for my kids. I know very well this. Please live or get help for the kids.
Absolutely. I think that's, especially if you have kids, it causes so much trauma for the kids later in life. Being a product of domestic violence in many different ways. Just friends, myself, my family, my sisters, my mom, it really leaves a scar. But I feel like when you see it that much, it also makes you to where you're like, I'm not going to put up with that. But some people, it's just, they feel like it's the norm. It's like they saw it through their childhood, so they feel like, oh, well, this is normal. And it's so not normal.
Yeah. And I think a lot of times when people are considering what they should do, whether they should leave, if they are in the situation, oftentimes I think we're not valuing what it does to the kids, and how it can affect not only your kids, but your kids' kids, and it can continue on. So that's one thing I truly did love about the previous comment, was saying how it can really, don't just do it for yourself, do it for your kids.
Yes.
And I think that's an important thing, because as a parent myself, and you could agree with this, we both want to always do the best for our kids. We want to set a great example for them. We want them to be good people, good citizens, and happy people, and successful people. And I think the best way to do that is to model that relationship, to model that to have that in your little community, in your home. And if you're not able to safely say, I have this in my home, then that's an issue. Yours truly, April, says, I think it's best to just let the person know that you are there if they need you, but the worst thing you could do is judge them.
That is very true, April. I had a best friend when I was younger, and she dealt with that a lot. And it made me so angry, to where her boyfriend and I actually got into it, and he threatened to like beat me with the belt. It was so awkward, so weird, but she wouldn't leave him. So I had to basically separate myself, because I gave her a safe place to come to. I said, you can come with me anytime you're ready. Please just know that I'm here, and I'm here to help you. It took her, I want to say, like 2 years, 2 years to finally leave him. But that was after multiple stitches, staples in her head. It was really, really bad, but it made me so angry toward him. She finally did leave, and she ended up actually coming to stay with me for a little while. As
a friend, was there anything you thought you should have done different, or at this age would have said, I wish I would have done that?
I really think it's up to that person. No, I think April's right. You have to let them know that you're going to be there for them. I mean, it made me so angry that he did this to a girl. And not only that, you guys, women can also cause domestic violence as well. It's not just men. So women can do it as well.
I'm happy you mentioned that, Francis, because I think there's obviously a lot of people assume that it's a one-way street, where it's just something that happens to women from men. But like you said, it happens the other way around. Statistically, I did some research. You're going to be happy with me about this.
I did some.
Men can be victims of domestic violence. Domestic violence is a pervasive, life-threatening crime that affects millions of individuals across the world, regardless of age, economic status, race, sexual orientation, gender, identity, religion, ability, or educational level. According to data collected from 2003 to 2012, quite old. I mean, we are in 2022, but
Yeah.
at least we have some type of idea. In the US, 82% of domestic dating and sexual violence was committed against women and 18% against men. A 2012 study found that about 4 in 5 victims of domestic violence, dating, and sexual violence between 1994 and 2010 were women. So obviously, there is a higher chance of the victim being a female or a woman, but it does happen the other way around. Freedom TY, this is a tough subject.
Very
and
tough.
This is something that we usually don't do on the Family Rules. We usually have our fun vlogs, our fun Q&As, and everything's happy and fun. But at the same time, we're close to 20,000 subscribers. I believe it's more than 2-3 are women. And as we just said, it does seem to happen more to women. So we wanted to do our part in an attempt to help our female viewers, or really everyone, get a grasp on this. And if it's happening to you, if it's happening to a sibling, if it's happening to a parent or a friend, this may better prepare you and make their lives better, your life better.
And we also had a question which brought up the subject as well.
Which was?
On the last live.
Yes. So it's something that's real. Like we said earlier, it happens to millions of people, and there is a better way and a better path for those who think there is not. Juke says the only thing friends can do is be there, because no matter what we say, if the person is not ready to leave the relationship, as toxic as it may be, he or she won't leave.
Very true.
And again, we are not doctors, we are not therapists. So if you feel you are deep in this situation, please seek professional help. Please go find that help. We have information in not only in the description box, but there are, okay, here we go. If you are in danger, please make sure to call a local hotline or the National Domestic Hotline. That's here in the U.S. at 800-799-7233. We'll let that scroll a couple times. But the truth, we just really want to make sure for you, if you are in this situation or your friend is, that you do something about it. Because as we know, it's not just us who are affected. It's really affecting our kids as well.
Very true.
Jennifer says, TJ, as a man, do you think other men are less likely to come forward as a victim? Jennifer, I do. I don't know if it's as big as a hurdle as you may think. I think it depends on the level. If there's a big story here in the U.S. about, I don't know if you saw it, Francis, about the OnlyFans model who is now being held for murder, as she murdered gruesomely with a knife, stabbed her boyfriend to death. And
I didn't see that.
He was
this a while ago, though?
This was like 3 days ago.
Oh my goodness.
And it's a big story here in the US. And the thing is, now some video is coming up of her being emotional and verbally and physical abusive to him. There's a video of them in an elevator, and she keeps just hitting him and pulling his hair and just slapping him. And the thing is, he's a lot bigger than her. He looks like he's a professional athlete size. So he could have easily have hurt her or done something in retaliation. But at least according to this video, he really doesn't. He just tries to keep her at bay.
Wow.
And we don't know what happened before or even after this video. But the point is, some men it's just not in them, because we are taught to not hit women. We know physically, biologically, we're bigger, stronger, and we know that could be, it's not a good thing to ever physically, I mean, a lot of us know that it's never a good thing to physically hit a female. Mm-hmm. It's something I've never done and would never do, because of the way my mom raised me and my parents raised me, and it's just not in me. But my point is, this person obviously didn't feel safe enough or strong enough to do something, and now he's no longer with us. He was murdered, and in a gruesome way. Yeah. So I think it's important for men out there too, that if you're getting physically hit and verbally abused, you got to do something. Not only can it be life or death, but it's very important for your psyche and your mental health, and for you to be a happy, well-rounded, successful person. Please do something. Donna says during the pandemic, the numbers rose because the abuser and victim were kept in close proximity for longer periods of time. The number of unreported numbers of cases were even higher.
This is something I thought about often during the pandemic, where, you know, those women where their husbands, where they're abused at home, but their husband goes off to work for that, you know, 8-9 hours. They have that, not that freedom, but this sense of safety. But if you're there on lockdown, you know, I feel like what she was saying too, it even rose higher. But those women like had no one to reach out to, and they were just stuck in it. But I've seen so many different reels and stuff like that where people were women, it was mostly women, are calling to order a pizza, you know, and
oh yeah,
so, and what were they doing? They were basically ordering the pizza, and it was they called 911 instead.
Well, what happened? No, they called. I think they ordered a pizza.
Well, they were
and I think the person on the other end heard the abuse happening, and said, if you're needing help, say you don't want mushrooms or something like that. And the person on the phone said, I don't want mushrooms.
Right.
And then the person from the pizza place called 911 on her behalf, or something of that nature.
So that's kind of how it started. But then women started to call 911 and saying, I would like to order a pizza, and give the address very quickly.
Yeah.
And then it was confusing the operator in the beginning. They're like, ma'am, you know, you called 911. And she's like, yes. So she convinced them. So now I think that's a thing that operators know to watch out for.
Yeah, it's great.
So I think that was very smart.
And I think it's one of those things where we're going to get better at this as the resources mount with social media and, you know, online. And I think it's going to get out in the open. Even doing these kind of lives where we're talking about it is something that I don't think was possible 15, maybe even 5 years ago. So I do think we'll get to a better place. The next question I wanted to tackle, though, Frances, is it possible for abusers to change? This is one that I did some research on. And I'm going to read a response from an article I saw, which said, yes, it is possible, but they must first make the choice to change their behavior. It's not easy for an abusive partner to stop choosing abusive behavior, and it requires a serious commitment to change. Once an abuser has had all of the power in a relationship, it's difficult to transition to a healthy relationship where each partner has equal respect and power. Sometimes an abusive partner stops one form of the abuse, for example, the physical violence, but they continue to employ other forms of abuse, such as emotional, sexual, or financial abuse. It is important to remember that domestic violence includes one or more forms of abuse and is a part of an overall pattern of seeking power and control over the victim. So that is a technical term, I'm going to assume, from a professional licensed doctor, therapist. But I'm curious to know, for you, Frances, do you feel it's possible for abusers to change?
I think that there's a very low percentage that do change, but I do believe that when you're a product of your environment and you think that this is normal, you don't really realize it until you're doing it yourself. And then someone that you truly love is like, you're abusing me. So basically, I do feel like they can change, but it takes deep, deep work. And I do know from experience that they can change and have a different outlook on life. But like I said, it takes work. You can't, if someone says, I'm sorry, please forgive me, I'll never do it again. No, that's not good
work.
enough.
What's work? What constitutes
You need
work?
to go to therapy. You have to change the way you think. You have to change your perspective on life, on how you grew up. It's not as simple as that, but there's many steps to get there. It is not just, I'm sorry, I'll never do it again, crying at your feet, begging you to stay. That's not going to work. You have to make sure that this person is actually putting in the work. Like I say, your actions speak louder than words. In this case, it's 100% true. You have to put in the work.
This is a tough one. Clara says, no, believe me, he said that he will not do this again, and then did that again, and not only not only physical violence.
See, I feel like people have those situations. Look, I believe I've seen many people change because of my upbringing. It was around us. This is just what we knew. It was part of our life. And it wasn't like, oh my gosh, until it happened to my sister and she got beat up really badly. Like the whole family, we were also almost going to do domestic violence to him.
Mm.
But he would never do that to this day.
Mm.
You know, it was bad. We all still rallied around them because he was still part of our family, and he ended up changing.
Yeah. Belen says, I think that if they go to therapy and work on them, they will get it, but the abused person can't help him. I think that's a very strong point. I think it is possible.
The abused person cannot. No, it's not your responsibility either. It's your responsibility to be supportive, but it's also your responsibility to be sure they're putting in the work.
I think that's a very good point, Francis, because if the abuser is only really going off of the abused or the family of the abused or the friends of the abused, like ultimatum, that's not genuine change. That's not an attempt to genuinely change.
No.
It's got to come from that abuser.
You have to realize you have a problem. You have an issue.
And here's the thing. I think it's very rare for abusers to change, but I do think it's possible. I mean, I've never been an abuser. I've never been abused, but I've changed a lot in my life. The way I see things, the way I respond to things has changed a lot. Even things I said or hear or see, I could have responded one way at 24, and now many years later, I wouldn't respond that way. So I can't necessarily say people can't change.
I love this comment right here.
Do you want to read it then?
Juke, right?
Yeah.
I think sometimes also a person can become abusive in a specific relationship with a give person. I'm not sure what that, but is not an abuser per se. Some people may bring out the worst in you if it makes sense. This is true to a certain extent because I actually had a friend who was just a great person and then kind of changed.
From being abused?
Yes.
Okay.
From being an abuser. This person brought out the worst in that one, like in the relationship. And you have to also see that as well, because they both became abusers. And to me, like my friend was not like that at all until she met this person. And then she learned that behavior.
And Francis, I'm just thinking of where to go because I want to make a point, but I kind of want to save it towards the end. But
don't forget, because you will forget.
So should I just say it now?
Yeah.
All right. We're just gonna wing it. You seem to have experienced a lot more, been around a lot more domestic violence than me.
Yeah.
A lot more. And this is the point I'm trying to make, is that we all have different backgrounds. We all see different things. You may be in one part of the country and thinking, this is crazy how much Francis has seen. And some of you may be saying, like, I can relate with Francis. I see it every day. I grew up around it. So I think the point of why I want to say that is because one of the things I wanted to ask, and we still want to ask, and maybe we'll save it to the end. This will just be a teaser, is the title of the whole of this live stream, which was, should I leave? Is it ever forgivable? And we kind of had different perspectives on this. So we're going to save that as a tease. We won't tackle that now. I do want to go back to Bryant's comment, because Bryant, I didn't get to read it, but I know you always say wonderful things. So what did Bryant say? Let's see if we can find it. Hold on. There you go. Bryant says, change maybe can happen, but forgiveness is far less likely, justifiably, of course. And that's where I think it gets convoluted. I agree.
This is very true.
Bryant, I agree.
The damage has been done.
Emmy says, hi, TJ and Franny. First of all, thank you so much for that live stream. Here in France, there is a big issue. When a woman goes to the police to file a complaint, they are often sent back home without being taken seriously. It's scandalous.
Yeah, that's really sad. I've seen where the woman goes to jail because there was a mark on the man. When the police is called here, 9 times out of 10, they take it very serious because, like you said, it could lead to murder. It could lead to other things. People snap. That's the problem. This is why they have to take it serious.
Emmy, I appreciate the comment and thank you for it, because this is a point I wanted to make. I did a lot of my thinking over the last couple of days. Again, this was just what prompted this whole live stream was a question from one of our wonderful supporters on our Wednesday live, and we just felt this was a topic that should be its own live stream and something that should live on in case people need help. But the point I wanted to make is I think it's incredibly important for those who are abused to have that person, to have that friend or family member that you can confide in and talk to, and that can help you. And if you don't feel you have that friend or family member, this is why it's important to know about what resources you have. And there are hotlines, there are websites you can go to where you can get help. But the first thing, I think it starts with you trying to get the help. I think oftentimes, and again, you can correct me, Francis, you guys out there can correct me. I'm not a professional. I'm just speaking from my mindset. I think a lot of times people who are abused, they focus on trying to change the abuser. And, and because they want to stay in the relationship,
they feel like they can save them,
or they could save them, and they see they're focused on the good qualities of them. And if they can only fix this bad side, then they'll have the perfect mate or whatever. But I think you got to focus on you. If you are being abused, you got to protect and take care of you and your kids. Forget about the abuser at this moment. First, control and take care and get you and your family safe, and then let professionals, let other friends of the abuser, the family of the abuser, deal with the abuser.
It used to be a stigma. I feel like now it's like they feel more comfortable reaching out for help. There was on an Oprah episode, and there was a woman who was really, like, she was getting abused very badly by her husband and her sons.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. The husband would make the sons videotape it. I know a lot of you probably remember this story too. So he would have the sons videotape her. Well, the boss started to notice that she was coming into work with marks on her face. So what the boss started to do was make a ledger. And every time she came with the bruise on her arm, on her face, he started off like hiding the bruises, putting them in places where other people couldn't see them. Then it got to where he just didn't care. He was putting them all over. So the boss had this book that she had been keeping for months. And every time the employee came in, she wrote it down. So when the wife turned in the husband, she had this evidence to basically back her up, and the husband got sent to prison. It was really bad.
Lovely says if a person is bold enough to physically, emotionally, and verbally abuse you, they will eventually end up killing you.
That's the biggest problem, and which is why this lady left, because it was because her sons were learning that behavior, and she was terrified that this is how they were going to turn out. And B, it's because she feared for her life. Like, she thought he's going to kill me eventually.
Freedom says we have some control in choosing what we accept in our lives. It's not familial.
So this is where I try to be devil's advocate, because some people weren't raised with feeling or knowing or thinking that they have a choice. They truly believe, like, this is my life, this is what it is. And it's just not the case. There's so much help out there now.
And I think it's also important to and it's like what we do on DDJF. We try to erase the stigma of being a victim or of having a loss. It's one of the reasons why we do our live streams every Wednesday, Taj and I, as kids who lost their mother to murder. There's a stigma that you're not allowed to say it, or you have to keep things private. That is what we're trying to do today, is trying to get rid of that, because that's the worst thing you can do. I think you do have to be probably strategic depending on the level of abuse, because sometimes if the abuser finds out, they will react on and take it out on you. But you still have to get help. We all should have a close friend or a family member that we can rely on to help us get through the situation.
And I think it's important to remember that verbal abuse is, to me, just as bad as physical abuse.
Okay.
Verbal, I mean,
what makes you say that? Because from
it's
someone.
a mental thing. You lose your self-esteem, you lose your confidence, you truly start to believe that, okay, this is the only life that I deserve. This is what they're putting into your head. It's the same as bullying, Desi.
Yeah, I think you make a good point, Francis, and I think I'm happy you make the point, because I think it's important for people to understand, well, I'm not getting hit, I don't have bruises, so what I'm experiencing isn't abuse or isn't domestic violence. And it goes back to how we started the live stream, where we made sure we wanted people to know that domestic violence isn't just physical. It can be verbal, emotional, financial. It can be that, and that's very important for people to understand, because it can eventually probably lead to physical abuse. Again, I'm probably not the best, because I don't experience this. I've never experienced it. And maybe I just always I don't know. I don't want to even go down there, but go ahead. What were you going to say, Ann?
No, I think it starts with us parents to teach our sons and daughters what that looks like: verbal, emotional, financial, physical. It starts at home for us to teach them first, because when they see that, and we have to be the models and the example, because when they see that or feel that, it's so foreign to them, they're like, no. Which is why now, if there's tension in the house or someone raises their voice, TJ knows this, it actually gives me major anxiety. I don't like it. I will basically leave the room, go upstairs, try to separate myself. I need a happy home. I think ours has gotten to be where it's great, and we discuss things that bother us or trigger us, and I think that's really important. But it starts at home, being the example, telling your daughters and your sons what is acceptable, what's not. When you feel this, reach out.
Again, I feel like I'm a broken record saying this, but I appreciate that comment, because I do, Francis.
Were you even listening?
I was, because I think it's important. I think it's important for, we don't experience domestic violence in our household, but it's important that we still talk about it.
Don't just assume that the kids know. Don't just assume.
It's important to talk about, and to make sure all of our kids understand what it is, and that it's not okay, and that there are resources. It's like, a lot of other things that we talk about, with drugs and other things, sex. We talk about this with our kids, but when it comes to domestic violence, we seem to not discuss it or talk about it. And I think it's very important for all of us out there, even those who aren't experiencing domestic violence, to have that talk with our kids. So that's why I said, I think I love that point.
True.
Mr. Rack says self-love first here, but everyone needs some sort of support. And this is a good point, because just getting yourself out, is that enough? That's the question I want to ask. Because look, if I'm the abused and I successfully leave a relationship, is that enough? Do we have some type of responsibility to try to help the abuser?
I think that is the abuser's responsibility. I would reach out to the family of the abuser and say, look, this is what happened. He or she needs help. This is not acceptable. Because, you love that person. Maybe you have fallen out of love with them, but you love them once. Love them enough to help them try to get help.
Yeah.
And for the next person that they may abuse.
That's what I was saying. Because just because you may be in safety or clear from that point, I do feel there's some type of responsibility to try to help so it doesn't happen to someone else.
Yes.
It's a very sad and ugly cycle that can continue to happen for others if we just stay quiet and don't do anything about it. There's another, there's a couple more, well, let's go to these slides. There's some slides that are pretty good. I can't see the top one because of the screen, but U.S. women who are murdered by their partners every day, 3. That is crazy. 3 women every day are murdered by their partners. U.S. women who have survived, attempted, or completed sexual assault, 1 in 6. U.S. women who reported being raped, 1.3 million. raped or sexually assaulted in 2009. That is incredibly high.
I think the first one is, because I read this as well, is 1 in 4 have experienced or know someone that has experienced domestic violence.
U.S. children who are exposed to domestic violence each year, 15 million. That's too many people. That's too many. And again, here's a free 24/7 confidential National Domestic Violence Hotline for anyone in the States. 1-800-799-7233. Francis, those numbers, and we're going to show a couple more numbers, are incredibly high and jolting to me.
It's very sad.
What do you think about when you see those kind of stats?
It makes me sad. I mean, I think I know back home. I don't want to say now because I feel like that's not the case now. It's different where I'm at in my life. But I feel like back home, probably every person I know has experienced it or knows someone is for sure in their family that has experienced it.
Do you think, and I think I know this question, but I feel like in some, I don't want to say cultures, but in some areas, people.
That's what I was going to say.
Go ahead, say it.
It's a culture. It can be a cultural thing to where this is just expected.
Yeah, it's the norm.
And accepted. Like, this is just what they do. If I don't have his dinner ready at 5:30 on the table, then I'm going to get a slap. I had a sister that happened to. And I was like, no, like, this is not okay.
But this is what scares me. There are areas in this world, especially in the States, where it's normalized. It's like, it's something like, girl, he hit me, laughing about it. And, or it's kind of, and that breaks my heart. That's really, really, really sad. And I think we owe it to ourselves to try to change that. As a society, we have to change that norm. Sure, you may survive it. You may think it's funny. You may think it's not a big deal. It's a tickle or whatever, but it's the wrong way to live.
Also, a lot of, I've talked to women. They're like, well, they feel like that means he cares about me. I made him jealous. He was jealous in some kind of way. And that means, he loves me. He would never do that again. So many times like my friend that it happened to, she finally left when he almost killed her. Finally, because she knew if she had not gotten out, he would have killed her.
Oh,
she had a gash in her head, staples.
Okay, I want to show one of these poll questions. Let's see. We'll go with this one. Do you think it's possible for abusers to change? 58% of you said no. 42% said yes. Again, I thought that number would have been a bit more extreme. I would have guessed it to be around 20% would have thought people can change. And 80 would say no, they can't change.
Because I feel like, honestly, I think that there's more help out there now.
Mm-hmm.
And if someone is genuinely willing to change, look, I have to say that I've been in a situation where I know from experience that people can change. They do it once, they're remorseful, they're even so uncomfortable that they even did it, but they're putting in the work. It's not just, open promises and crying. That gets women every time. Please don't leave me. They're falling at your feet. I'm so sorry. I'll never do it again. And you want to believe them, but they got to put in that work.
Sequoia says, I remember a Michelle movie. Is that the singer, Sequoia? Great songs. Anyways, her grandmother told her, if he don't hit you, then he don't love you. That's what you're talking about. Did you say that?
I do feel like some women think that. They feel loved.
How?
It's a psychological thing to where they've gotten the women to feel that way. Don't make me do this. It's crazy. You made me do this. No, nobody can make you do anything.
Sequoia, thank you for that comment. Clement says, I heard that some women deserve this because they don't listen to their husbands. That's crazy.
That is really crazy.
Here's another stat or another poll we put up on our Instagram. on the Family Rose Instagram. It was, has domestic violence affected you? 53% said yes and 47% no. Again, you know what? We should go here because a lot of people actually. This is the one. Do you consider emotional psychological abuse as domestic violence? 92% said yes, and they are right. I've admitted earlier I would have been one of those no because I didn't assume emotional, psychological was technically domestic violence, but it is.
It is.
So with 92% of our community knowing that, I think that's why this number is actually as high it is as it is. I wouldn't have expected more than half of our, those who answered in the poll. Again, it was around 250 at the time we pulled the numbers. And I wouldn't have expected more than half to have said, yes, it's affected them. But when you take into consideration, again, emotional, psychological, financial, and physical abuse, then you can kind of understand why that number is so high. Davina says, when they beg you, it's like they give you that bit of power for that moment.
So that's exactly right. Yeah.
It's a really, really sad and scary dynamic.
Because look, you love this person so much, you want to believe that they're going to change. Mm-hmm. You're like, I can help them. I can change them. But guess what? They have to help themselves. Mm. You can be supportive, but honestly, my advice now would be if that happens to you, separate. If they're putting in the work, let them put in the serious hard work, getting therapy, changing the way that they think, changing their behavior. That's where it starts.
Johanna says, I think some people normalize abuse because they grew up in an abusive household. Humans, our brain tends to look for what they already know. And that in that case, it's abuse. Johanna, I think this is a wonderful, really strong, powerful comment. And I think that's right. And I think that's why it's so important that we model what we want our kids to experience. And again, it can go on for generations and generations. Mm-hmm. And for anyone out there who is scared to leave for their kids or for their family or want this wholesome family, just remember what cause it's having on the kids, because then they may reciprocate it and it could get worse for them. They may not. So basically, please consider leaving, even if it's just for the kids. Francis, here's another poll. I think this was one of the main questions we asked, was victims of domestic violence, should they always leave or does it depend on the situation? 82% said to always leave. 18% says it depends on the situation. And again, this was the initial question that sparked this whole live stream, mm-hmm. we kind of had different opinions. And I'm curious, before you explain what your opinion is, I'm curious to know, has your opinion changed or do you still feel the same?
It's still the same.
Okay. So we're gonna do about another 15 minutes on this live stream, and then I want us to explain our answers. But before we get there, I want another thing to know. Did you know empaths attract narcissists? Mm. Did you know that?
I did not.
You didn't know that?
I did not. Because, they feel like they can save everyone. I'm going to help them.
Let's look at a couple more stats, and then I want to get some advice from friends. So 20 is the age where 1/3 of women become victims of dating violence. Adults are not the only victims. 50 million children. We already spoke about that, but it's good to speak about it again. The cost of intimate partner violence exceeds $5.8 million per year. Here's just some random stats that you should know about when it comes to domestic violence. How often does this happen? Every 9 seconds in the U.S., a woman is assaulted or beaten. That is an issue, everyone. And if we just ignore it, if we don't talk about it, if we don't do live streams like this, how are we supposed to improve that and make this world a better place?
Very true.
So again, if you're coming into this live stream late, this is not normal for the Family Rose. We do Q&As and vlogs that are very chirpy, fun, happy, but we have to do our part and get real sometimes.
Gigi Taylor says some cannot leave. Well, they cannot leave because it's in their mind that if I leave, this can happen. He's threatened me so much. So they basically traumatized you. It happened to my mom. Whole nother situation, but it was more of a parent threatening her. And she was terrified to leave because in her mind, she took his threats very serious.
My response, look, I can't, it's not fair for me to say what others experience. It's just not cool to do. It's not right for me. I don't have any bearing to stay on it. I just think sometimes we have to be comfortable, and it's easy for me to say on the outside, but I think we have to be able and willing to accept and understand that it could be the most uncomfortable situation to leave. You may have to move to a whole nother country. You may have to start completely over.
But a lot of people don't have access to that. They don't. It's financial. It's I'm scared because they take they've threatened moms. I know abusers. They use it. If you leave me, I'm taking the kids. There was a situation back home too. This was really, really sad to me. And these are extreme situations that can happen. The husband abused a friend we grew up with since I was probably in first grade, abused her. She finally got the courage to leave. He was in every way abusive, physically, emotionally, financially, everything, made her to where she felt like she could not do it without him. Finally, she was going to leave. He literally, the cops came, he abused her. The cops came, he got put in jail. Once he got out of jail, he came to her house in front of their 4 children and shot her in the yard, killed her, then killed himself. Those situations happen more than you know. So when a woman says she can't leave, these are the thoughts in her head of why she cannot leave. And he did everything he told her he was going to do.
Ben says, how can people leave? Say if a woman has children but has no family or friends to seek refuge.
And that happens.
So not everyone can leave.
Not everyone can. Okay. I just wish that everyone knew that there is a way out. There is. It's not going to be easy. It's not going to be an easy road, but there is a way out. And now there's so much help out there.
There's a lot more help out today.
Yes.
A lot more options. But I think the key takeaway is it's not going to be easy. And in some cases, it's virtually impossible. But I feel that everyone should at least always try to get better and to make their situation better.
And Lena says, you can always leave. I didn't realize this until my son was born. Again, sometimes they use the children against you. And for a mother, her children, they're everything to her. So they're terrified. Is he going to hurt my kids? Is he going to steal my kids? You see Amber Alerts all the time about how ex-husband came and stole the kids. And now there's Amber Alerts everywhere. I'm not sure if everybody knows what an Amber Alert is, but it's where it's on your phone. You get an alert saying, look out for this car, child missing. It's on the freeway signs, stuff like that.
Belen says, yes, Francis, and you have very low self-esteem and you think you won't be able to get ahead on your own.
Yes, because they put you in that position. They've changed your perspective on thinking you cannot live without them.
Okay. June 25th, 2009 says, I love your guys' advice. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
And again, I appreciate you saying this because it's important to know that we are not licensed therapists. We're not professionals. So if you're going through it, please find professional help. You can call, if you're here in the States, call 800-799-7233. If you're not here in the States, please look up your local hotline. You can go online. There's usually resources or maybe Facebook groups. There's all types of ways now that we can maybe reach out and get some help to get going. And that's if you don't have family and friends, of course. I personally think if you have family and friends, you should be doing both. You're going to need as much support as possible to change your life for the better. Gabe says, yeah, I know what an Amber Alert is. It's when like someone kidnaps a kid. That's exactly right.
So basically, look, you may, if someone you love or care about is going through this, your first instinct is to say, leave, get out of there. Of course, like that's what you want them to do, but still be that soundboard for them to let them know if they're not ready, because it happened to one of my sisters. She just wasn't ready, but eventually I think they're going to get it. They just need to know that they have that support.
Simply, somebody says, what can you do to help this family who are in need? Donate safe homes. I personally think the first thing you could do is have a conversation with the one who's being abused. I think it's important to understand where their mindset is, what they need to help to get out. Because if you're just donating a safe environment, they may not be ready to change themselves and may go right back to the situation. And now you are in danger because the abuser may feel you're part of the issue or part of uh, the other.
You're in the way now.
You're now in the crosshair, so you have to be careful with that as well, and just have a conversation and maybe push them onto great resources and stay connected. Though when I say push, I don't mean just push and get rid of, but encourage them to seek more help. I don't think you should ever just be the only resource to help someone. You can't try to be the one and only superhero. I think it has to come from a variety of people to help someone get through the situation. Marveline, good to see you. I love that picture, by the way. Says, it can be very difficult to leave an abuse relationship. I was severely abused physically and emotionally at the hands of my mother, and I continue to struggle to this day.
Yeah, that's hard.
Incredibly sorry, Marveline, for what you go through. This is why we're doing this, and we're trying to change that that narrative and to let people know that this is a real issue. I'm hoping with you and your family and your kids, it's a different trend that's happening and a different thing. I can say this: for some of us, the prior generations in our family handled things a lot different. Um, and we talk about this, I think, on live streams, but at least in our regular lives, we talk about this and make sure our kids know that if you experienced or saw things, that's not an excuse to continue the trend. We have to learn from it and grow from it as best as we can. And we have to understand that it's our responsibility to show our kids a better way. So
true.
I try to say that with respect and just as an encouragement to make sure the trend stops with you and doesn't continue on to your kids. One more thing I want to say before we get to our answer, because we do have to end this soon, is as we mentioned before, we asked on Instagram, what would you tell your friend who is going through abuse, domestic violence? What advice would you give to your friend? And I just want to pull some of it up. Let's see. Here's a couple. It's very small on here, and you may have to pause every now and then, but we wanted to showcase a lot of this advice because it was such great advice. It's rare that that kind of behavior will change in good without a therapist. Leave. Someone says, leave. It's not worth staying. Put God first and love yourself. Go to the police and leave as soon as possible. I'll be here whenever you need me. If someone loves you, they don't abuse you. Leave the person abusing. It's not worth it. I'm here for you. I think the most important thing is to show that we are present. I managed to save myself. You can do it. There's a lot of great advice from our community. That's one page. Here's another page of more great help or great advice. Get help ASAP. Plan out everything carefully before you leave. That's one deserves to be read a second time. Plan out everything carefully before you leave. Both should go to therapy. I would tell them not to leave, or I would tell them to leave. I would say it's not their fault. Please leave and get help. So there's 2 sheets of a lot of our community's great advice that we wanted to share. And again, you could have paused it if you feel like you need more encouragement to get through. Spend time on those last 2 overlays we just showed. Pause it. Read each and every one. Find the strength to do something. What we don't want is anyone. We want to try to help as many people as possible improve their lives, get healthy, and live a successful life. Gigi says, as a survivor, I am just weeping. Well, Gigi, we are proud of you, and we know a bit about your story, and
you're an amazing person.
And you know what?
And you made it through, girl. You did it.
One thing we should say too is on Dee Dee Jackson Foundation. We've had even Gigi on, and we've had other victims of domestic violence and talked about it. So if you haven't done so yet, subscribe to the Dee Dee Jackson Foundation YouTube channel, where it's a whole channel strictly based on improving your life and dealing with loss and obstacles, and it's an inspirational channel. So I should mention that.
I also have to say that be careful, like be aware of the red flags. I think that's where it starts. Before someone abuses you, they show you those red flags are going off, people. And listen to yourself, listen to your gut, listen to your instinct. Red flags are there for a reason.
So, Francis, you talking about red flags, and one of the questions I actually wanted to tackle was, do abusers show any potential warning signs? So here's a couple of from
I already know some, and I haven't even seen this.
Do you want to share some?
Well, I think it starts with trying to control you. What you wear, you know, where you go, who you see, who your friends are, things like that. And that can go for young people and older people who are married.
Okay, so let me just make a quick banner, because I do want to spend a minute on this, because it's such an important topic. But warning signs, boom. Let's see. It'll be better, but that'll work.
That'll work.
That'll work, right? Warning signs. This is important. So there is no way to spot an abuser in a crowd, but a big butt. Not like a but a big butt. Most abusers share some common characteristics. Some of the subtle warning signs include: they insist on moving quickly in a relationship. They can be very charming and may seem too good to be true. They insist that you stop participating in your preferred leisure activities or spending time with family and friends.
The control. They are extremely jealous or controlling. They do not take responsibility for their actions and blame others for everything that goes wrong.
So there's several more, but Francis, I want to sit on these three real quick.
Yeah.
They insist on moving quickly into a relationship. To me, that is very possible, but that isn't that isn't an obvious sign. I wanted to be in a relationship quickly. I like relationships.
Right.
So, and I don't. Not abuser.
Yeah.
But another one is they could be very charming and may seem too good to be true. You've mentioned it many times throughout our relationship, how I seem too good to be true.
I was watching out for you. Okay. I was watching you the whole way. Okay. What's this guy doing? Mm-hmm. He's cute and all.
All right. But this third one is a serious one. They insist that you stop participating in your preferred leisure activities or spending time with family and friends. This is a flashing big red light to me. Whenever someone is taking you away from your leisure activities, what makes you happy, from your friends and family, that is a red flag. And I don't necessarily know, or I don't have the expertise or knowledge to say it's going to go definitely to abuse. But what I will say is it's not cool, and it's not someone who truly cares for you.
Ooh,
so
I like that one.
That's another one.
My life, my hurdles. Yeah. Bommy. So demand access to your phone. Yeah. I just think it starts very subtly. You know, what do you have on? Why are you wearing that? You can't wear that, you know, if I'm not with you, or simple things like that. It's kind of, but for me, the number one thing is once they start to alienate you from your friends and your family, and then boom, they got you.
And it doesn't necessarily have to be physical violence or physical abuse. Again, it's the alienation and the control to control you and to emotionally abuse you and to psychologically abuse you. That's what happens, because if they can alienate you from your friends and family, they can control you. You're not going to have that support system or that strength. You have nowhere to go. The people that can help and support you, they've negated. So it's a very dangerous thing.
I was really blessed to be able to visually see that, to experience the control that someone had. And for me, anytime anyone tried to say, you can't do this or that, I'm like, well, you're not my father. Like that is, I still use that term because I saw my sisters and friends controlled in such a huge way. It bothered me.
Signs of an abusive relationship, it may not always be obvious. That is true.
It starts very subtly.
All right, so we're going to go through some more of the warning signs from this article. They are extremely jealous or controlling. My nose itches, by the way.
Scratch it, babe.
They do not take responsibility for their actions and blame others for everything that goes wrong. They criticize their partner's appearance and make frequent put-downs. Their words and actions don't match. Mm-hmm. Any of those ring out to you, Franny?
Oh, every single one.
What is it about it?
Just, it's about the controlling aspect. They're breaking you down. They're trying to give you lower self-esteem. They're trying to take away your confidence so they have the control.
I think the put-downs. Anyone who's criticizing you and putting you down or just saying, what are you doing, or just belittling you is no good for you. And
those are the first signs. Get away from that ASAP. Because not only that, like it really starts to affect you. That's a huge trauma, because then you stop believing in yourself.
It's important to remember that domestic violence is first and foremost a pattern of power and control. Any one of these behaviors may not be indicative of abuse on its own until it is considered as part of a pattern of behavior. So Rafi says abusers usually look like Prince Charming in the beginning. If it seems like it's too good to be true, ding, ding, ding. Mm-hmm. I think you have to be careful with that, though. I do, because sometimes if we're going to 100% subscribe to that, we're not going to subscribe. Then we can't believe in love at first sight. We can't believe
That's true. See, like, you're different, though. I even remember first meeting you, and you were, I don't know if I had gotten pregnant with Royal yet, but you were like, you don't need to work. But for me, it was like, oh, no, I need to make my own money. So A, you don't think I'm using you. And B, like, I need that freedom and you were just trying to be kind.
Right.
That's it. So it wasn't like that for you, but you're a different mold too, honey.
But that's why for me, of these, I'm not saying too good to be true isn't a true red flag. I think it is a red flag. Obviously, from you guys saying it, as well as it's in this article, they can be very charming and may seem too good to be true. That's one of the points. But for me, the clear warning sign is they insist on you stopping what you like to do, your leisure activities, and they insist on you not spending time with family. They belittle your family and friends. They learn to isolate you from your family and friends. And the other one that's really big is they criticize your appearance. Yeah. They make you feel less than. They belittle you. That is some horrible, horrible psychological abuse that just continues to accumulate and really affect your life. And the next thing you know, 5-10 years later, you're in a whole different person, in a whole different position, and getting help is a lot more difficult because you've alienated so many people.
And some also want you to be out of shape and unhealthy, because then they're like, oh, well, I have all the control. No one's gonna want them. Or they put that in your head. Oh, you don't need to go work out. If this is self-love for you and self-care, go work out. Eat healthy, do your thing, but don't do it for others. Do it for yourself. But that I've seen jealousy to where they're like, no, you're not going to the gym because they don't want you to feel better and look better.
It's important to remember, everyone, there's stuff in the description box. If you feel you're needing help with domestic violence, if you feel this is speaking to you or to a friend, please encourage them to get help. Please be that person that can help their situation. Please be careful on how you help too. Yes. It's not just all on you. It takes several to do it, because you don't want to be the next target for the abuser, because you will become a target if the abuser finds out what you told them or what advice you gave them. They will focus and isolate you to turn you into a bad person so that you don't have the influence to help the one you care about. So you have to be careful. If you're looking for help, please visit https. I don't think we have to say all that anymore. Just visit ncadv.org/get-help. There's a ticker signals going across. That's called ticker symbols, right?
I do.
Going across that can help you. Make sure you guys get the help you need. All right. So, Francis, we're about to close this. You have an appointment to get to.
I do.
This is over an hour long, but
And
there's
I would love to stay longer. I mean, this
Um,
is such a huge topic.
Paula with
Important.
the super chat says, I lived with an abusive stepfather for 11 years. My mother and I were alone against him, and part of our life was destroyed, but we managed to overcome it and move on, and our life has never been better.
Oh, I'm so happy to hear that, Paula.
Love to hear that, Paula.
That you guys are doing well.
The Weird with the super chat says, trigger warning. I think Gigi means when someone is held captive by the abuser without any means of outside communication, like a phone. Doors and windows can be barricaded.
I knew a situation. I had neighbors like that. He literally nailed all the windows shut, put a padlock on the outside of their door. So she could not even leave the house. It was sad.
It's unbelievable. Kelly with the super sticker. Thank you so much, Kelly, for the support. And laying back in his tenderness with the super chat says, thank you all. Since I have firsthand experience with this, I thank you all so much for talking about it.
You're welcome, Andy.
You are welcome. How did you said Andy?
Yeah, that's yeah. Andy.
You remember?
Yeah.
Look at you, Franny
I love
J.
that name, laying back in his tenderness. That's cool.
That's so cool. Look at Franny J. Franny knowing. Okay, so Franny, before we go, we have to answer this question. Domestic violence, is it ever forgivable? Should you leave?
Forgivable is a hard word because forgivable is usually like forgiving also helps yourself, not just the abuser.
Okay, so there's really two questions. Is domestic violence ever forgivable? Let's answer that first. And you guys can answer too. We'll put up a couple of those too.
See, I'm a person that believes, because of my childhood, because of how I was raised, I believe that people can change because I try to look for the better in people, but not just words. They have to put in action that they want to be better, that they want to change. I think the percentage is very low. I will say that, but I do believe that there are some good ones out there that want to be better and want to change.
Teresa says you can forgive and still leave.
You can.
A good point.
Absolutely.
Lena says it's forgivable to a certain extent, maybe. It's when the abuse continues knowing it's
That's
hurting
what I'm
you
saying.
by someone who you love and trust the forgiveness wears thin. Being trusted is a privilege.
Absolutely.
So going to the question, domestic violence ever forgivable? I think it should be forgivable. But the reason people are like, I'm coming from a different angle because I've learned in my life, and it's, like I said, my mother was murdered at 16. And if you ask me for the first 10 years, I couldn't forgive the murder of my mother. There's no chance. I've been working on forgiving him, not because I feel he deserves it, but because I can't let myself become enchained by this pain, by this mentality forever. And I think if we learn to forgive, it frees us from being able to move on with our lives.
But I have to say this. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but this is really important.
Yes.
The fact that you've forgiven him, okay?
You're trying to forgive.
Trying.
Yeah.
He still has not taken real responsibility, which is why I feel like you haven't fully forgiven him.
Maybe.
He's not putting in the work.
Maybe, but I'm not forgiving him. This is where it comes back. I don't forgive him for him. I'm forgiving him for me.
Yourself.
So
yeah, because it holds.
Whether he takes responsibility or not, that's for him. For me, I have to work on forgiving the action to free myself more. And this is where, again, I'm not a victim of domestic violence. I can't.
But you kind of are because it was your mother.
Yes, but it hasn't happened directly to me. And so I have to be careful with how I answer this because I want to be respectful to those who are experiencing domestic violence or have. And I don't want them to think, oh, well, TJ says we have to forgive. So, I don't want to do that. I'm just saying from my perspective, forgiving is something that I'm working on. Even though this guy committed the biggest crime and the biggest downfall of my life, the biggest pain of my life, I am trying to learn how to forgive in a healthy way so that I can move on. And you have to be careful. Here's the thing. Sometimes people on the outside may take you forgiving as if it's you're now with them or now supportive of them. I've made it clear publicly and internally that I'm trying to forgive, and that and it goes through stages. Sometimes I'm in a better forgiving position, sometimes I'm not. And what upsets me, this is where the media comes in. They'll take that forgiving as if I'm now supporting their release or supporting. I can care less how long he stays in jail for. He can stay in jail for another 150 years. That's not going to change my pattern of forgiveness or how I feel. And I think that's important to say, because if you are dealing with domestic violence and you make that choice to forgive, you may have family members who think that's the wrong thing to do, or may assume that means you're now saying he should be excused. That's two different things. And I think that's very important to clarify, because forgiveness, to round everything up, I think forgiveness is something you do for yourself, not for the person. Jennifer says, TJ, you're a bigger person because I couldn't do it. I just couldn't. And Jennifer, I get it. But again, I think, at least for me, and I can only speak from my perspective, I think for me, forgiving is a way of getting some of my freedom back. And when I say freedom, I mean my mental freedom, where I don't have to dwell and be saddened by it every single day. Belen says, you must forgive because it hurts you, not for the other person. This is exactly what I'm saying. And this is something I learned. I didn't know this off the bat. The first 10 years, I didn't know this. This is something I've learned the last 5, 6, 7 years. It's freeing yourself.
I've always been a forgiving person. With that situation, I don't know. Like, I just don't know, because it's his actions. It's his words.
I think
that really make me, I don't like the guy.
I think forgiving, the word is a very complicated and complex word. And I think that's where we get in trouble with understanding this, what we're saying.
And you can't control his perspective and what he thinks about it. You can only control yourself.
And Teresa says, if my mother were murdered, I'd take that to the grave. No forgiveness here. I hear you. I hear you.
I just wouldn't want to hold on to that hate in my heart.
Forgiving helps you to move on.
Yeah.
And that's the point. Okay. So now, Francis, this is the main question that we ask. Should you leave? Should you leave? It's not going to come up for a while because I have to type it in. But should I leave? Let me put that in. Boom.
This is look, that's an easy question to ask, but it's a very difficult question to answer.
Okay. So when we first mentioned this on the live stream last Wednesday, we were asking, should I leave? My response was, you leave. You leave. And again, remember, my mentality was physical abuse.
Mm-hmm.
Not saying there's anything, or not saying emotional or psychological abuse is less than or anything like that. But I was coming from a mindset of being physically harmed. And I think about my daughter, my loved ones, my female loved ones or male loved ones. But my response was, yes, you should leave. I truthfully still feel that way.
Mm-hmm.
It hasn't changed for me. I feel anyone who is being physically, emotionally, psychologically abused consistently should leave. And I have to say
that's
consistently.
That's the key word, though. Consistently.
Because I don't want, look, I sometimes tease Francis. She sometimes sees me. I don't see that as
not abuse.
Emotional abuse. But some people may take it that way. You know, why are you teasing me with my weight, Francis? Some people may feel that's I know
wrestler.
Wrestlers are pretty big. Okay, so I understand that, but I think that you have to. Everyone's situation is different, but the way we see abuse, physical, emotional abuse, yelling and belittling, I think that person should always leave.
My take on it is, I feel like, especially physical, like the first time it happens, I really feel like if you have the means, if you have family support system, get out of that relationship and say, I love you. I want you to get better, but you have to get help. Do not just say, oh, he's never going to do this again, even if he swears on everything he loves in his life. No, if you're being physically harmed, I would say get out, make him get the work done. Now, emotional abuse, look, let's be honest, we tolerate that a lot longer because you're like, is this abuse? Is this not? You're confused. You don't know. I would have a serious talk and say, look, this is not something I'm willing to tolerate.
With that person.
With the person that is abusing you in any kind of fashion, you need to say, I will not put up with this. And say, this is what's going to happen if it continues.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. Okay. So did you answer it the way you wanted to?
Yeah.
You're good with your response?
I do believe that every situation is different. I do believe that the physical touch, I would say get out of there. Not saying they can't change, because I feel like they can, because a lot of this is learned behavior. And if you love someone, you want to give them that chance. But at the same time, they have to put in the serious work. They have to prove to you and to themselves, I am willing to put in the work to change.
So you're saying if someone was an abuser, and they generally are putting the 9 to 5 every day working at it, kind of like an alcoholic situation where they're committed to changing and make it a thing of past.
I feel like they can.
Okay.
If they're putting in the work. But I do believe that both should get help.
All right.
Both people.
Talking about help, here's the 24/7 free confidential national hotline here in the States, 1-800-799-7233. Again, there's other local hotlines in various countries. We only are putting up the U.S. one because that's the only one we have right now. But we want to urge you guys to please, please, please find the help if you feel you need it. Do not be shy about this. Go to friends, go to family. It's a very important thing. It's not only life and death, could be life and death for you, but it's also very important for your kids.
Absolutely.
You want to teach your kids and your loved ones to be very careful and to teach them the right way to do things. Jennifer says, well, no, TJ should not leave. We love you too as a pair. I'm not going to go anywhere.
Oh.
Okay. So, all right. I think we can close. Francis, we're good?
We're good.
All right. So we hope you guys enjoyed this. This was a different vibe, but I think twice a year we could do these kind of lives.
It's important to speak about this, especially if we're getting asked this question. I think it's important.
So there you go, you guys. Please, we will be back on Sunday with the vlog and back on Wednesday with the regular live Q&A. If you haven't done so already, make sure to subscribe. Continue to learn with us, continue to grow with us, and to continue to enjoy life with us. We love you all. Adios, everyone. Have a good weekend, and bye-bye.
Bye, guys.